Good evening, everyone. This meeting of the Essex County Board of County Commissioners is hereby called to order. Due to the COVID-19 outbreak and to be in compliance with the governor's executive order, this meeting is being conducted remotely. The public is able to view the meeting via live stream or YouTube. A link for the live stream is posted on the Commissioner website. All participating in this meeting, please be mindful to put your microphone on mute until speaking. Additionally, please identify yourself by putting your name on the record each time before you speak. The general public will be able to participate by means of communication equipment. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Cooper.
Here.
Commissioner Gill.
Here.
Here.
Commissioner Graham.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Luciano, absent. Commissioner Mercado.
Here.
Commissioner Siebel.
Here.
Commissioner Vice President Pomares.
Here.
Commissioner President Richardson.
Here. We will omit the salute to the flag since we are conducting this meeting remotely. However, for all those affected and or lost to the COVID-19 virus, let us please take a moment of silence. The 2,266 people in Essex County lost to the virus. Thank you. I have before me certification from the clerk that this meeting is in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Madam Clerk, are there any transcripts to be approved?
Mr. President, there are none.
Madam Clerk, we will now move to topics of discussion.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Polavecchio will explain.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. The topic of discussion tonight is Mr. Wayne Dawes, who is an employee with the Office of the Essex County Prosecutor, has requested a disciplinary appeal hearing pursuant to state statute, specifically NJSA 40:41A-87B. As a county employee, the statute entitles Mr. Dawes to a hearing before this board, after which the board may choose to either affirm the disciplinary action taken by the administration or adopt a resolution of disapproval of the action. Mr. Dawes was given notice to appear today. He did, in fact, request this hearing. I don't know if he's here with us or he's called in. I do know the administration has had some sporadic contact with him over the last number of weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Polavecchio. Will you finish?
I can continue. I just didn't know if Mr. Dawes was on the line yet. We're able to identify if he is.
I see four callers.
Yeah. Is Wayne Dawes on the line?
I'd say that we never received any confirmation from him.
Didn't receive confirmation.
I can advise that we did not receive a confirmation from Mr. Dawes that he was going to appear. We gave him the login, et cetera, on a number of occasions, but we have not heard that he was going to, in fact, be here.
And just to add to that, Courtney Gassion, Essex County Council, Mr. President, I spoke personally to Mr. Dawes on Monday morning, this past Monday morning. He verbally told me over the phone that he was going to be appearing. I advised that he would be receiving a dial-in from our county administrator's office, which, as Mr. Dooley and Mr. Jackson indicated, had been sent earlier today. I also personally sent him an email earlier today asking him to again confirm his appearance and indicating that he'd be receiving that dial-in. But I don't believe Mr. Dooley or Mr. Jackson received any confirmation in writing, and neither did I.
So do we know if any of these callers are Mr. Dawes? I see a number of callers. Do we know
Yeah,
who
I
they
see,
are?
I don't know. Can any of the callers identify themselves? There are 4 that are unidentified to me.
Craig Lombardi, Division of Housing.
Okay, that's caller 12.
Warden Barcliff, Essex County Juvenile Detention Center.
Okay, that's 14. Mr. President, I don't know who the other 2 are, but if Mr. Dawes isn't present, there's really no point in moving forward with his appeal. Just to kind of round out the record, he would have been afforded 10 minutes to be heard on his position regarding the disciplinary action taken against him. The administration would have also been given 10 minutes. And at that point, we could have retired from that, but it's not something like a trial that would be held in his absence. This is really for his benefit to be heard. So we could certainly move on with the remainder of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Polavecchio, but I just do have a question. So what happens now since he did not appear? So he has no other recourse, or he's...
Well, this was his recourse, and what would happen is the board would have an opportunity either to affirm or disapprove of the disciplinary action, which was termination. There's really no opportunity to get a second bite at this process. I don't know if we hear from him again, if it's up to the board, if they want to give him another chance to be heard. But I know I've been copied on a number of emails that were sent to him. Certainly not the phone calls, but this would be the one opportunity to be heard.
Thank you, Mr. Polavecchio. Commissioner Gill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a process question. So this is, this is new to me in terms of the first time I've ever seen this. So in the 9 years I've been on the board, so this is part of a state. So anytime, I just want to understand, anytime someone is disciplined, anytime a county employee is disciplined by their department or administration, they have the ability to request a hearing before the freeholder board. And what is the result of are we tasked with taking action? Do we have to, I'm confused on even what the hearing is supposed to accomplish.
I can, if you'd like, Mr. Polavecchio, I can at least respond to the first portion.
Yeah, let me just go back. You're right, Commissioner Gill. The last time this was done, which was the only time that I was aware, was 2011. And it's really upon an order of suspension or dismissal. So it's not any discipline. It's not like I guess a minor. I would let Ms. Gassion speak to that. But yeah, it's for suspensions and dismissals. But yeah, they can. There is recourse. So.
But really more specifically, Courtney Gassion, Essex County Council, this is a right of appeal that's afforded only to unclassified employees. Mr. Dawes was employed at the Essex County Prosecutor's Office as a legal assistant. That is an unclassified position, meaning it is not covered by civil service. So the majority, as I'm sure you know, of our Essex County employees are civil service employees. They are afforded the rights under the civil service laws and regulations. So they have a normal disciplinary process that they go through for any type of major discipline that's anything greater than a 5-day suspension. They get a departmental level disciplinary hearing. If they don't agree with the results of that hearing, which is done internally through my office, they have the right of appeal to the Office of Administrative Law. That's a completely separate and distinct process for civil service employees. This process, what's commonly known as an 87B hearing, that's the statutory site, is only for unclassified employees who are considered at will, and they do not have the protections of civil service.
So, and it's either only for suspension and termination.
Correct.
for length of any time around the suspension?
I don't know that distinction's actually made in the statute, Commissioner. But if you were an unclassified employee that had a suspension that you wish to contest, this would be the process in which you did it. The other option you would have is if you're represented by a collective bargaining agreement, you could go through that grievance and arbitration procedure.
I see. And this is a suspension or a termination? I missed that at the beginning. This is termination. And when you say an appeal, so the board is hearing the appeal, what are we doing? What are we doing? What's the board's role? Are we acting like the judge and saying, no, we reverse it, we don't agree, he goes back to work, or what?
The board can
Mr.
do one
Palovecchio?
of two things. The board can do one of two things, Commissioner. Can affirm the action, so the dismissal, or adopt a resolution of disapproval, it's called, of that action. So saying, no, we don't think the termination was proper.
Maybe I missed it, but were there any supporting documents? Was there anything sent?
I sent a memo to the board.
Okay.
Nothing from Mr. Dawes. I just did a summary memo to the commissioners.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Yes, Ms. Macker. I'm sorry.
can
I
That's
just,
right.
no, I actually was saying, no, I was responding. I'm not done with my question.
I'm sorry.
I guess the issue I have, Mr. President, is that, and again, not necessarily seeing the memorandum, but it's a fairly serious thing that we would be asking to render judgment on. So I would want to make sure that at least for me, that I would have as much time as possible to review the record.
Oh, for sure. And Commissioner Gill, my recommendation would be, if Mr. Dawes was here, would be to reserve any decision, not to give a snap judgment while we sit here, and to provide both sides until our next meeting on, which I think is February 10th, between now and that time, to submit any supporting documents they would want. It would not be fair to sit here and ask the board to give a judgment today anyway. This would just be the hearing part of it, not necessarily the decision part.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you,
Mr.
Commissioner Gill.
President, I have a question as well.
Commissioner Cooper.
Is it possible that, Mr. Palovecchio, do we have to make a decision now to say, all right, we just move on? Or can we give the person to like the end of the meeting? You know, everybody's not real conversant with this WebEx Zoom environment that we're in right now. And considering that someone lost their job, especially in this climate, I want to afford the person an opportunity to come before us. Like, what do we do?
Well, two things. Yes, you can hold it. There might be an opportunity where the individual wants to go into closed session. That's my recommendation, unless he wants to have it an open session. In fairness to the administration too, there's been numerous attempts to contact and have this individual here today. So I don't know that it's the WebEx. It could be, it may not be. I think the level of responsiveness has been a bit spotty. Sure, it's up to you. You can hold it. That's your decision.
Commissioner Cooper, I have no problem giving him to the end of the meeting. It's not a problem. If he comes on between now and the end of the meeting, then what we'll hear from. We'll go into closed session and hear what he has to say. And we'll hear both sides, and we'll move on from there.
Mr. President,
Mr. McInerney.
just a question for Mr. Palovecchio. Assuming the board passes a resolution against the firing, what weight does that carry? Does the administration have to take that into consideration? Does that have any power to override the administration's
Yes.
or is just an opinion resolution?
No, it's not an opinion. No, if it's a 2/3, it has to be a 2/3 vote, and then the suspension or the dismissal is voided. So
Okay.
yes, it has weight.
It does have weight. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Thank
a
you.
2/3 vote, though. Yep.
Thanks, Mr. McInerney, for that question. It's a very important question. I say we move on. He's not on now, so we'll give him to the end of the meeting. Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move to public comment session. Today's meeting is a combined conference board meeting, and we will vote on every item on the agenda. However, since we are meeting remotely, the public had the opportunity to submit questions and comments for consideration and can also call in. At this portion of the meeting, the clerk will have additional instructions for our callers. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. Constituents were given the opportunity to call in or send emails for public comment prior to the meeting. If you are calling in, you will be acknowledged to speak in the order that your call was received. Emails received for public comment will be read after the calls are completed. At this time, a public information officer will announce the callers so they can state their comment or question, and be reminded you will have 3 minutes to speak. Please do not have your laptop or any electronic device on while calling in. At this time, we're accepting only calls pertaining to agenda items. Please note, you will have the opportunity to call back later in the meeting at the designated time for public comment session on non-agenda items. Chalo Malumba, Public Information Officer, will begin our public comment session now.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Chalo Malumba, Public Information Officer for the Essex County Board of Commissioners. We do have some callers. The first caller is Jake Ephros. Mr. Ephros, I'm sorry, please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak. You may begin.
Hi there. Am I audible now? My name is Jake
Yes, you are.
Okay. Yes, my name is Jake Ephros, and I'm calling to address agenda item 49, which is limiting the public speaking period to a 3-minute time limit, and setting in stone this kind of limitation of public engagement in these sessions. We've been seeing the same thing happen in Hudson County, and as I am from Essex County and am now in Hudson County. Both of these are my home, and it's sad to see the county governments in both my homes here in North Jersey severely limit the extent to which the public can actually engage in discourse with our elected officials. And so I urge the board to reject the resolution number 49 as it follows this trend. And I would be remiss to leave out, exactly why this trend is happening, where county commissioners across North Jersey are limiting public speaking portions of these meetings. It's because more and more of us are coming to these meetings to speak out against the insane ICE contracts that the counties continue to hold, despite the overwhelming public outcry against the revenue that our counties generate from the caging of people's bodies in relationship with the federal agency, Immigration Customs Enforcement. It's absolutely devastating, and the fact that these counties are limiting, in response, the speaking periods and the ways in which the public can actually engage with county meetings is a total atrocity. And so I urge you to vote no on 49, and again, just take a stand. We see that the Biden administration is not going to do this for us. They have their 100-day moratorium on deportations, which already is an incredibly limited way to address the atrociousness of ICE enforcement, the violence of ICE enforcement and immigrant communities in our area. And that's already so limited, and even that is being taken down in part
30 seconds,
by
Mr.
a federal
Ephros,
judge.
30 seconds.
So I'll conclude this limited bit of time that I have by saying, look, Biden's not going to act for us, right? You have the power to shut down this ICE contract, and we demand that you do it immediately. And we also demand that you make sure you listen to the public when we're telling you that that's what you need to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. If I may, Madam Clerk, we're not the time is not being changed. It's the time that we've had. So we're not limiting or lessening the time for public speaking.
Correct, Mr. President, it is 3 minutes. That has not changed.
That's what it's been.
And as been our policy, Mr. President, all questions will be responded to in writing.
Thank you. Our next caller is Mr. Whitney Strube. Mr. Strube, please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak. You may begin.
Sure. Hello, my name is Whitney Strube. I live in Newark. I teach at Rutgers Newark, and I'm a member of the North Jersey DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. I'm speaking on item number 62, the resolution creating the Public Safety Penal Committee Subcommittee on ICE. And I want to protest the absence in its mandate of a specific mandate to end this contract and shut down this facility. That absolutely needs to be part of any body that's truly committed to justice. That's incredibly obvious at this point. And, you know, by way of making that point, I want to read from President Richardson's statement today in support of President Biden's executive order to end the federal use of private prisons, which points out that that system has a legacy of racial bias. This is a quote, a legacy of racial bias that has been intrinsic in our mass incarceration system. These inequities are sustained by the consistent underperformance of private detention facilities in providing the services, programs, and resources that would support rehabilitation and reentry into society. I want to emphasize that all of that applies exactly to the facility that you run to generate revenue from ICE detention. You know, President Richardson, as you point out, the executive order serves to reduce profit-based incentives and encourage the prioritization of support and rehabilitation. Your contract with ICE also is about revenue-based incentives. That's the purpose. That's how Joe D. introduced it when it was first signed as a way to keep taxes low. And so I'm troubled by the hypocrisy of, you know, calling out private prisons, which are obviously unjust and racist. I agree with all of that. But every standard that you can use to critique them also applies to collaborating with ICE to generate revenue. And that just shows the need to end this system. I know I don't have a lot of time. The other 2 points I want to make very briefly are just to emphasize as one example of why I think the body that you have here for oversight is not necessarily doing its job and not serving a purpose is that there was a hunger strike in your facility by people detained by ICE. At your last meeting, Mr. Jackson denied that happened. That is not true. It did happen. The only way you can define it out of existence is by relying on ICE's definition of a hunger strike, which involves missing 9 consecutive meals. There is no reason whatsoever to let ICE dictate the terms of reality to us. The reality is, with the Abolish ICE Coalition and with DSA, we are working directly with those people inside and with their families. We're in direct communication, and we can assert for an absolute fact that dozens of detainees in your facility were on hunger strike. And so I submit to you a question. I would like a written response. Does the Board of Commissioners understand and accept as fact that there was a hunger strike in Essex County Correctional Facility in December and early January? Because I think it's important to clarify that for the record. And I also object to the comment system. This system does not work. The calling in is very opaque, very hard to use. Many of us have had our calls dropped. Last week, there were people you didn't call on. It is not a workable system, and commenting over Zoom would be much preferable.
That's your
also,
time,
prohibiting.
Please finish up. That's your time. Finish up. That's your time.
Oh, sure. I just gonna prohibiting profanity is not constitutional. We should be allowed to swear. That is a First Amendment right. So I object to that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another caller. We have Mary Rizzo. Miss Rizzo, you have please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak. You may begin.
Hi, my name is Mary Rizzo. I live in Newark, New Jersey. I'm a professor at Rutgers University, Newark, and I am speaking on agenda item 62. But first, I do want to just take a brief detour to say that again, like other callers, the comment system here is a problem and it does not work. The last meeting, I waited on hold for almost 2 hours, and then my call was dropped before I was able to make my comment, which I emailed about after the fact. But this is an unworkable system that is really antithetical to democracy. As I've said many times, I've spoken before this body many times. I'm here to talk against the ICE contract. I noticed that the Essex County commissioners have adopted a statement against the insurrection that happened in Washington, D.C., and against the violent activities of those who wanted to undermine the values and ideals of democracy that, as the statement says. And I think that's excellent. That's an important statement. But I think what's missing from that statement is the recognition that the people who committed that insurrection in D.C. were white supremacists, and that when we think about white supremacy, we have to think about the institutions of our society and our government that are promoting white supremacy. And one of the central institutions is ICE. ICE is an institution steeped in white supremacy. It terrorizes undocumented people of color who live in our communities. It breaks up families over what is a civil offense. ICE puts people in indefinite detention even after they've served time for criminal convictions. And by and large, ICE does this to people of color. You are aiding and abetting ICE in these efforts through your continued contract with them, and in other ways as well. As many people have already noted in previous meetings, Essex County cooperates with ICE more than the other 20 counties in New Jersey combined, and more than the State Department of Corrections. So I'd like to know why Essex County collaborates to this degree with ICE. Now, in the past, we've heard you justify this contract using the excuse that it's better for the detainees to be in your jail because they'd be closer to their family and their lawyers. And we know that this is not true. There's ample evidence this is not true. Just in the last few weeks, ICE has retaliated against hunger strikers at your jail by transferring them to other states. So your jail is not keeping them safe, and that's only a cover for your addiction to this money from ICE. So what I'm calling on is for you to stop collaborating with a white supremacist organization. You have that power. You can respond to the courage of the people who are on hunger strike and have been on hunger strike in your jail. You can pressure ICE to release these people, not transfer them to another facility. And then you can take the next step, which is ending your contract with ICE and your tacit support of the white supremacy that is tearing our country apart. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We do not have any more callers.
Thank you. Mr. President, I believe I've been given a note. I don't see him here, but I believe Commissioner Luciano has joined us by phone. If that is true,
Yes.
would you acknowledge?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes, I am here.
Yes. Okay.
Thank
For
you.
the record, Mr. President. Mr. President,
Thank you,
we have
Madam Clerk.
one. You're welcome. Mr. President, we have one additional comment for this session. And this one is from Jeffrey Fell, Esquire of Short Hills, New Jersey, regarding ordinance number 2020-16. Give me a moment. Let me start the timer. Our standard timer is okay. Dear Essex County Commissioners, I respectfully request that this letter and exhibits be included in the January 6, 2021 official virtual reorganization meeting public record. I respectfully request the confirmation and receipt and distribution of this letter and exhibits to all commissioners prior to the virtual reorganization meeting. This letter incorporates and supplements all of my earlier letters to the commissioners, including my July 8th, 2020, August 3rd, 2020, September 9th, 2020, October 19th, 2020, November 6th, 2020, and December 14th, 2020 letters. I respectfully request that the following new agenda and non-agenda item questions be read into the virtual public record at the appropriate times and subject to the 2 separate amended timeline limitations. This is a very fluid, mysterious, and abnormal time. I assume that the Sorry for a moment. My timer's going crazy. So I'm going to ask Deb for some assistance with the time. I assume that, okay. I assume that the council have actual constructive knowledge of all post December 15, 2020 intervening case and tax exemption statutory law, including but not limited to that described in my attached post 2021 Chronicle of Events. Since last December 2016 freeholder meeting, our state legislators enacted legislation buttressing my third-party taxpayer standing and 5% long-term tax exemption payment to the county legal arguments. A 1135 reinstates nonprofit hospital real tax property exemptions if the hospital enters in a community service contribution agreement with the municipality, and 5% of the community service contribution agreement revenues are paid to the county. A 1135 would also prohibit individual third-party appeals. In addition, our state legislator enacted A4 ACA R1 New Jersey Economic Recovery Act of 2020. This legislator buttresses my post-April 17, 1992 non-urban renewal entity NJHMFA long-term tax exemption invalid legal argument. On page 66 of the proposed New Jersey Economic Recovery Act of 2020, our state legislator mirrored the state long-term tax exemption handbook issued on or about November the 18th, 2002, and omitted the non-urban renewal entity NJHMFA long-term tax exemption from the proposed legislation. Our government is the potent and omnipotent teacher for, we have 30 seconds left, for good or ill. It teaches the whole people by its example. Crime is contagious. If the government becomes a lawbreaker, it breeds contempt for the law. It invites every man to become a law unto himself. It invites anarchy. Justice Louis Brandeis, Olmstead versus United States, 277 U.S. 438, 1928. That concludes the time period allowed. The body of the rest of this document will be read into the record in its entirety at a later time. That concludes, Mr. President, our public comment session.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk, do we have any ordinances or resolutions for introduction and first reading?
Yes, Mr. President. We have two ordinances. We have a bond ordinance, and we have two bond ordinances, Mr. President, of three. Would you like me to read them into the record?
Yes,
or?
please read ordinance number 1 into the record at a later time.
Okay.
Mr. Jackson, please explain the ordinance.
Good evening, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, members of the board. Mr. Acker is here to address these items.
Thank you, Robert. The first ordinance is in the amount of $14,750,000, and that's allocated to parks, buildings and grounds, and highway improvements. The second one is for $5,250,000 for the college. Combined, they total $20 million, which is what the county executive has committed to do every year. No more than $20 million in bonded projects.
We're done.
Ms. Paolavecchio, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Mr. McInerney? Mr. McInerney, we can't hear you.
It looks like he's frozen.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Still can't hear you. We still cannot hear you, sir. I don't know what to tell you. You want to try logging off and logging back in?
Mr. President, that is a good suggestion. Ask him to log off and log back in. In the meantime, I will also have our IT support to try to reach out to him if he does not hear us. Oh, he did.
Mr. President, this is Cooper. I have a question. Thank you. To the administration, will the tuition at the college be affected by the bond for bond number 2?
I'm going to say no, Commissioner. Obviously, other factors in today's world impact that tuition, but this is very much the normal amount that we do every year. So I think will not have a negative impact on the tuition.
Also within the bond ordinance, there's a memo attached to it that references a capital renovations plan. Is this like a multiple year plans? Do we anticipate that we're going to be financing capital improvements at the college for several years to come?
Excuse me, I just have I need a point of clarification. Are we talking about another ordinance besides one at this point?
Mr. Acker talked about 1 and 2.
Right. That's why I had a question about number 2, since he presented item number 1 and 2. I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson, is there, so like, are we going to anticipate financing other capital improvements for the college based upon the comments on that memo?
Yeah, this would be a multi-year, and it has been an ongoing capital improvement program at the college. But this is an ongoing effort. Technologically, there's improvements that have to be made. I know that the physical appearance of the college is not as inviting as it might be, particularly when you look at it juxtaposed to the campus across the street, new building and so forth. So I know that Dr. Boache is working with the board and with the county executive to try to put something together, not only for the Newark campus, but also for the West campus, to make it more inviting, more technologically competitive, because it competes with Morris County College in particular, which is much more state of the art. So we're trying to make it more competitive so that our kids, not only will kids from Essex County kids will be more inclined to stay in our system and within Essex County College. So it's an ongoing effort.
All right, thank you.
Did we lose Mr. McInerney permanently? Anybody reach out to him?
Mr. President, I'm speaking with him on the phone and he's trying to log back in.
Okay, thank you.
I can read lips, Mr. President. He said it was the greatest capital he's ever seen in his life.
Oh, I hear you. So I guess I can't read lips, so I would have to take your word for it.
Mr. President, if necessary, can we just have him call in the way Commissioner Luciano called in if he can't get back?
He's going to try. There he is.
Is. Can you hear me now?
There we go.
We can hear you now.
Okay. Loud and clear. All right. Sorry about that. That was a good idea to log in and out. All right. Thank you.
Did you have any questions on bond on ordinance number 1?
No, I just just that we're staying within the $20 million that we've allocated as the authorized amount that we would do on an annual basis. As I was saying, the only difference is that last year, we did do an additional, I think, $7 million through the operating budget, which we are not doing this year. So we're still committed to just doing 20 million of bonded debt. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions on ordinance number 1?
Mr. President, if I may.
Yes. Commissioner Vice President.
Thank you, sir. I have some experience teaching on the college level in the university, and I can tell you that the pandemic has revealed quite a real gap in technology where one didn't think they might be. And with students, pivoting now and going online, there is a great belief that more and more students will be relying on the virtual ability, which has been a growing trend anyway. So I think these improvements are really going to be important in order for our college to remain competitive and exceed. In addition, county colleges, which offer a significantly reduced tuition, is a great alternative for many core requirements that other four-year schools may have. So it's a very good investment. Education period is a great investment, and this one in particular that's going to have some enhancements technologically speaking will allow the college to be much more competitive. So I think this is a great thing.
I'm sorry.
Someone please mute your device.
We're hearing your conversation.
And for the record, that wasn't in my house.
Thank you, Vice President Pomaris. Commissioners, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I have a motion from Commissioner Cooper and a second from Commissioner Graham to introduce ordinance number 1. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Cooper.
Yes.
Commissioner Gill.
Yes.
Commissioner Graham.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Luciano.
Yes.
Commissioner Mercado.
Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Pomaris.
Yes.
Commissioner Siebel.
Yes.
Commissioner President Richardson.
Yes.
So moved.
Madam Clerk, please read ordinance number 2 into the record at a later time. Did we say that Mr. Acker, that he went over both ordinances at the same time?
Yes, he did, Mr. President.
Okay, so, all right, Mr. Jackson, you want to explain the ordinance?
I have nothing more to add than what Mr. Acker spoke about, Mr. President, with regard to improvements at the college.
Okay, and we kind of discussed it. So, Mr. Polavecchio, any questions?
Nothing additional. No, just that you had to take this one separately anyway, in a separate vote.
Mr. McInerney?
No additional questions.
Commissioners, any additional questions? Hearing none, I have a motion from Commissioner Gill and a second from Commissioner Johnson to introduce ordinance number 2. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Siebel.
Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Pomaris.
Yes.
Commissioner Mercado.
Yes.
Commissioner Luciano.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Graham.
Yes.
Commissioner Gill. Commissioner Gill. Absent. Commissioner Cooper.
Yes.
Commissioner President Richardson.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please read ordinance number 3 into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson. No, Mr. Polavecchio, I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. President, if the board will recall, the board introduced the salary ordinance at the end of last year for 2020, 2021, and 22, and it covered a range of salaries for a number of county employees. One thing that was not done, if you'd look to paragraph 8, There was in there a car allowance for members of the Board of Commissioners. It excluded the president of the board. This just amends that salary ordinance to include the president of the board at the same level as the other 8 members.
Thank you, Mr. Parlavecchio. Ms. McInerney, any questions?
Well, yes, this is being changed because although there wasn't a vehicle used by the president last year, the U.S. president declining to use any vehicle of the county at this point in time, and that obviously entitles you to the allowance.
Thank you, Frank.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions, comments? Hearing none, I have a motion from Commissioner Luciano and a second from Commissioner Mercado to introduce ordinance number 3. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Cooper. Absent. Commissioner Gill.
Yes.
Commissioner Graham.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Luciano.
Yes.
Commissioner Mercado.
Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Pomares.
Yes.
Commissioner Siebel.
Yes.
Commissioner President Richardson.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have any ordinances or resolutions for listing purposes only?
Mr. President, we have none.
Okay. Do we have any ordinances or resolution on second reading and public hearing?
Mr. President, we have none.
Okay, let's go to the resolutions. Let's move to a resolution number 1 and 48. Mr. Jackson, please explain the resolution.
Mr. President, we can do 48 and do an order. That's Mr. Acker is going to be covering that one. Well, we can if you wish. I'm happy to do. I'm going to do 48, but I thought you were doing it for Mr. Acker. But
we have Acker, 1 and 48.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that, but we'll do it that way. That's fine. Mr. Acker is going to do number 1, Mr. President.
Okay.
Mr. Acker, the temporary capital budget.
You still
He's still there? Mark, we can't hear you. Not sure why that is. I will, in the meantime, Mr. President, with your permission, I'll do number 48 while he's trying to get back on.
Please do.
Okay, number 48, Mr. President, members of the board, we were able to receive a grant from the federal government in the amount of $15,426,829.50 for temporary emergency appropriation. We're looking for a budget insertion. These funds are designed to support renters in a number of ways, to provide for actual rental assistance for up to 12 months, and in some cases up to 15 months of assistance. The eligible households are those who have been negatively impacted by the COVID crisis, as so many, as you know, have. There's a priority for people who are 80% of the median income, and even sort of a super priority of those who are 50% of the median income. There's also given priority to people who have been unemployed for 90 days as of the time of the application. And what we're going to also, too, it provides that 90% of these funds must be direct assistance, and 10% can go to the administration of these funds. So it's a big win for us. And oh, I should say too, that one of the other things that we can do with it, probably a big chunk of this will go toward paying utility bills, back utility bills for our residents. We'll be able to pay directly to the utility providers, because in some cases, as you might know, people are behind. Right now, there's a moratorium on shutoffs, but at some point that's going to end. This would be some funds that we'll be able to help them out tremendously going forward. So we can help out with rents, we can help out with utility bills, we can help out in other kinds of ways to make sure that our residents, to help our residents kind of stay afloat for a longer period of time. So we're grateful for these funds and would encourage the board to insert it into the budget. Item 1, I don't know if Mark got on yet. Yes. Mark, are you there?
Is he on?
Yeah, I don't know why, but basically, if I may, Mr. President, item number 1 relates to the earlier bond ordinances, and this is just establishing the 2021 temporary capital budget. So they were able to move on the projects that are incorporated here a lot quicker. And this is just establishing the temporary budget to enable us to do the items that we talked about earlier.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Paulovecchio.
Nothing additional, Mr. President.
Mr. McInerney.
Yes, just like we have a temporary budget for our operating current budget, we need one in capital. You could have all the funds in the county treasurer, but you cannot spend them without authorization. And so this capital, temporary capital, allows a certain percentage of the total capital authorization to be expended up to a period of time.
Thank you, Mr. McInerney. Commissioners, any questions or comments? I do. I'm sorry, go ahead. Vice President Palmares.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jackson, congratulations on securing the grant related to number 49 and the rental assistance. For the benefit of the public, how will someone from the public be able to apply for those funds? Where can we direct them?
We're still formulating plans for that, Mr. Vice President. I think it'll be a hybrid approach. I think there will be some programs that I believe Director Ramos and his staff, along with perhaps an outside vendor, will put together a program for people to apply, much the same way we did with the home mortgage process. And I believe that there may be some direct negotiation with some utility providers that we're able to actually make a lump sum direct payment and take care of a whole host of people at one fell swoop.
Thank you.
I think it'll be a hybrid.
I know
more to come.
I know it's your interest to get it out as soon as possible, and I won't hold you to a date, but can you give us a range of, will it be maybe in about a month's time, a week's time, or where we could have portions of it?
I think we'll be the direct piece probably can be done quicker. The formulation of the application part by tenants, I would say 30 to 60 days.
Okay, thank you, sir. Great work on that.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, I have one more question on that as well. Which department is going to handle the processing?
Right now, I would say it would be Mr. Ramos's department through Citizen Services.
Okay.
But that's still the county executive hasn't made the final determination. But if I were odds on that's where it would be. That's a logical place. And I know that Director Ramos has actually met with his team to start formulating a process on how to do it.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Jackson, I have a quick question. In terms of, individual or family who's behind on their rent and utilities, what is the maximum amount that they're allowed to receive?
There's no max that I've seen. No max.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I have a quick question too.
Commissioner Cooper.
How far back will residents be able to apply? Like, is there a cutoff time period?
There's still some guidance to be provided on the program, but I would say that it's going to be March 1st, which is the beginning point for most of the COVID-related programs. It's been March 1st of 2020.
All right, thank you.
Mr. President, I have a question also.
Commissioner Johnson.
Mr. Jackson, will these funds, will it include Newark residents also? Because I know in the past, Newark has been getting their own lump sum of money for these kind of programs. And does this program eliminate Newark?
No, sir. It's all of Essex County, Commissioner.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I have a motion from Commissioner Graham and a second from Commissioner Johnson to take resolutions 1 and 48 as one. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Siebel,
Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Pomares,
Yes.
Commissioner Mercado,
Yes.
Commissioner Luciano,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes.
Commissioner Gill,
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner President Richardson.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, we will now move to resolutions 2 and 3. They are from the Office of County Administrator. Please read them into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, Tim Walker, our Director of Risk Management, is here to handle items 2 and 3. Mr. Walker.
Good evening, President Richardson, Vice President, and the rest of the Commissioner Board. Tim Walker, Director of Risk Management for the County of Essex. We come before the board seeking authority under number 2 for the renewal of the county's commercial property insurance policy for the Essex County Correctional Facility. That would be with the affiliated FM Insurance Company for term of January 1, 2021 to January 1, 2022 at an annual premium of $498,482. Are there any questions?
Mr. President,
Mr.
I do have a
Palovecchio.
question. Yeah, hi, Mr. Walker. That
How
annual
are you?
premium, you did say, I'm doing fine, thank you. You said this was a renewal. Is that an increase on the premium from prior year?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is an increase of 13.8% to prior year, a total increase in cost of $60,274.
Okay, was there anything in particular other than the market that led to that
The market,
increase?
yeah.
Market.
It was absolutely the market. In fact, the original quotes we were getting were upwards of 40% increase.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to do some virtual walkthroughs of the facility with the carrier and a couple of other risk control items, and that helped drive the increase down to 13.8%.
Okay, but it wasn't something additional claims in recent years?
No, not for this
After
facility. No, they haven't had a claim in a couple of years.
Great, thank you.
Mr. McInerney.
I have no questions.
Okay. Commissioners, questions or comments?
Mr. President, he's also got number 3 to discuss.
Yes.
Would you like me to present number 3 right now?
Please do. Yes.
Sure. We seek authorization for the renewal of the county's commercial excess flood insurance policy. Once again, for the Essex County Correctional Facility. This time, this coverage is with the Westchester Surplus Lines Insurance Company for the same period, and the annual premium of $52,506. That represents a 10% increase over last year's and a total increase premium of $4,773.
Mr. Palovecchio.
I don't have, he answered my questions. Thank you.
Mr. McInerney.
No questions.
Commissioners. No questions? I have a motion from Commissioner Luciano and a second from Commissioner Mercado to take resolutions 2 and 3 as one. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Gill,
Yes.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Luciano,
Yes.
Commissioner Mercado,
Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Pomares,
Yes.
Commissioner Siebel,
Yes.
Commissioner President Richardson.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move to resolutions 4 through 18 with the exception of number 14, which has been withdrawn by the administration, which are all from the Office of County Counsel. Please read them into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Corporation Counsel Gassion will handle these items.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Commissioners. Courtney Gassion, Essex County Council. I will start with resolution number 4. This is a professional services agreement to provide legal services regarding to a lawsuit that's been brought against the distributors and manufacturers of opioids and their intermediaries. It is the law firm of Corella, Byrne, Chechi, Oldstein, Brody, and Agnello are representing the County of Essex, as well as multiple other public entities in this multiple district litigation. It is a contingency contract. There is no cost to the county. This is the second year we're asking for this contract to be approved by the board. As we've discussed in the past, it is seeking damages from the opioid manufacturers as a result of the current opioid crisis. Mr. President, would you like me to go through all of the resolutions and then we can do questions at the end?
Yes,
Debbie see me.
that'd be fine.
Thank you. Resolution number 5, also a professional services agreement to provide legal services in county real estate development matters. This contract is with the outside law firm of Chiesa, Shanahan, John Tomasi in the amount not to exceed $60,000. This is for the calendar year January 1 through December 31, 2021. This firm has been retained the last several years to assist in real estate development matters. This includes appraisals, real estate purchases, and sales that the county finds itself involved in during the course of the calendar year. So this is an ongoing contract that we request board approval on. Resolution 6, professional services agreement for special outside counsel on various contract issues, including but not limited to actual or threatened litigation with the firm of Connell Foley. This is also for calendar year 2021 in the amount not to exceed $75,000. This firm has also been retained by the county for several years to assist us with matters arising generally out of our Department of Public Works and involving various construction projects, as well as bid-related items. This contract is specifically paid out of the Department of Public Works budget. Item number 7 is a contract to provide legal services in the matter of County of Essex and the Essex County Board of Chosen Freeholders versus Aetna. This is with a firm of Dakotas, Fitzpatrick, Cole, and Giblin, also running for calendar year 2021. This is a contingency contract plus various expenses in the amount not to exceed $50,000 for reimbursement for expenses associated with experts in this case. This is the matter in which the county is a plaintiff seeking reimbursement from our prior insurance carrier for overpayment of insurance premiums. There is no other costs associated with the litigation other than, as I mentioned, the expert cost. This matter is currently being litigated. We did have a mediation scheduled for this week. Unfortunately, it was canceled due to an emergency that arose with the mediator and has been rescheduled, I believe, for the first week of February. Item 8 is a professional services agreement for legal representation in labor matters for Essex County with the firm of Genova Burns, January 1 through December 31st, 2020, in an amount not to exceed $200,000. Genova Burns has for many years provided us with legal counsel in the areas of labor and employment law. They have also assisted throughout many contract negotiations in settling our collective bargaining agreements with our multiple unions. Number 9 is a professional services agreement in the matter of Abdul Ahad versus Essex County Sheriff's Officer. This is a contract with the firm of Inglesino, Webster, Wycosala, and Taylor in an amount not to exceed $100,000. Also, this contract is for January 1 through December 31st, 2021. This is a newer case that was just filed in the latter half of 2020 involving a police shooting in the Essex County Sheriff's Office. Item 10, professional services agreement for legal services at civil commitment hearings, including guardianship cases at the Essex County Hospital Center. This is with the firm of Inglesino, Webster, Wycosala, and Taylor, an amount not to exceed $17,000. The county represents through the Essex County Counsel's Office, represents the county at 14 hospitals throughout the state of New Jersey in commitment hearings. These take place almost every day of the week. Due to somewhat limited resources in the county counsel's office, we do have assistance from outside counsel. That's what this contract is for. This firm represents the county at bi-monthly hearings at the Essex County Hospital Center to provide support to the county counsel's office in this regard. Number 11 is a legal services contract in the matter of Muhammad Musli versus County of Essex. This is with the law firm of Inglesino, Webster, Wycosala, and Taylor, January 1 through December 31st, 2021, and in the amount not to exceed $100,000. This is a matter arising out of the Essex County Prosecutor's Office that was filed in the earlier part of 2020. Number 12 is a professional services agreement with the law firm of Lum, Drasko, and Positan in the amount of $50,000 for calendar year 2021. The matter is Rosalie Hines versus Carolyn Murray et al. This is a matter filed against the former prosecutor Carolyn Murray, as well as the Essex County Prosecutor's Office by a former Essex County Prosecutor employee with regard to an alleged breach of a settlement agreement. Number 13 is a professional services agreement regarding the collections of unpaid fines and penalties for various environmental violations imposed by the County Department of Health and its authorized subcontractor agencies. It's with the firm of Pyro, Zinna, Cefeli, Paris, and John Tempto, January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021. This is a contingency contract. There is no cost to the county. The county recoups a portion of the fines that are recovered by the law firm. Number 14 is a professional services agreement with the law firm.
14 has been withdrawn.
You are correct. It has. I apologize. Number 15 is a professional services agreement to provide special outside counsel service on domestic violence custody hearings. This is with the firm of Maritza Rodriguez Esquire. Ms. Rodriguez handles these domestic violence hearings on our behalf on a monthly basis in the amount not to exceed $17,000. This was at the request of our assignment judge, who advised our office that it was a conflict for us to represent individuals in these hearings, given that we simultaneously do represent the Essex County Prosecutor's Office in other matters. Number 16 is a professional services agreement in the matter of Maria Cortez versus the County of Essex. This is with the outside firm of Scrinsey Hollenbeck in the amount not to exceed $50,000. In this particular matter, there's actually two firms retained. In number 16, it is for the representation of individual defendant Dana Roan, who's the former Essex County Register. This matter involves a sexual harassment lawsuit filed by a county employee, Ms. Cortez. 17 is the companion resolution, also in the same matter, with the law firm of Walsh, Pizzey, O'Reilly, and Flanagan in the amount not to exceed $50,000. This firm represents Essex County in the same litigation. And finally, number 18 is a professional services agreement to provide legal services in the matter of Christopher Duraco. It's with the firm of Walsh, Pizzey, O'Reilly, Flanagan, in the amount not to exceed $50,000, calendar year 2021, representing defendant Essex County. This is a matter arising out of the Essex County Prosecutor's Office by a former Essex County Prosecutor employee. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Polavecchio.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Cassione, just a general question at first. On all of the contracts being awarded for active cases in litigation as opposed to, let's say, for collection matters, those are all pending lawsuits, right? None of them are the first time that these contracts have come before the board. They're renewals, in essence.
These are all renewals. Yeah. Yes. The most. Yeah. The one that came before you really for the first time was at the end of last year, and that was in. I'll just highlight that for you because that was the newest one. In the Abdul Ahad matter.
Right.
That was the newest one, number 9.
Okay. Thank you. And one more question with number 4. That's the opioids case. Not recently, but earlier or later in 2020, there was some discussion about global settlements on these opioid cases. Is that at all impacting this one?
It is. And in fact, I believe settlement terms have actually been reached, but not finalized. As I indicated before, it is a multi-district litigation. So we are actually out of the Ohio district. That's the litigation that we are associated with. So finalization has not occurred yet, but the case will settle. It's just a matter of for how much and when. There's also a bankruptcy portion to this case, which I believe needs to be completed before that settlement can actually be finalized.
Okay. And again, that case is on a contingency, so there's no hourly rate on that. That's based, the outside counsel will get paid based on the final settlement, correct?
Correct. And several other New Jersey counties are involved in that case as well.
Yep. All right, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. Mr. McInerney.
No questions, Mr. President.
Okay. Commissioners. Questions, comments? Commissioner Gill.
Thank you, Mr. President. In awarding these contracts, do we want to think about the right way to ask this question? How do we evaluate potential conflicts with any of these firms in awarding these contracts?
Whether is your Courtney Gassione, Essex County Council, Commissioner Gill, is your question whether or not the county has a conflict with the firm?
Correct.
So it's really a two-step process. So first, the firm, when they're contacted regarding being retained, they run their own conflict check on their end. And then when they submit their purchasing paperwork to our Office of Purchasing, there's actually a form they have to complete there where they have to identify any type of interest or association they have with the County of Essex. And if a conflict is found at that point, that would prohibit them from representing the county, we would not go forward with the retention.
Okay, so they have to self-report to the county based on a form that they fill out?
Correct, as part of our purchasing process.
Okay, and those conflict rules are governed by statute, by county code?
So I think that there's and Mr. Polavecchio may want to add to this, but there's certainly New Jersey public contracts law, which dictates any type of vendor's conflict with an appointing authority. So they would have to certainly comply with those, and certainly under the New Jersey rules of ethics, as a law firm, as an attorney, they would have to comply with the New Jersey rules of ethics as well, and the New Jersey rules of court as they apply to any type of conflict of interest.
Right, and if I could add to that, Ms. Cassione, and the rules of professional conduct prohibit you from entering into, you have to do your own internal conflict check and then they prohibit you from engaging in a case where you may have a conflict.
Do the rules of professional conduct speak to appearances or just explicit situational, like if X, you can't do Y? Is there any general language around appearances of conflicts and that
Appearance of impropriety, that's
Well,
a government.
Yeah, not.
or
I'm sorry, Michael.
appearance of
Not to
conflict.
cut you off. Not necessarily impropriety, but just a. Yeah, is there general language around appearance of conflicts in that in the code that governs that decision?
So I can answer it. There are specific walls put up with government attorneys. So, for instance, if you like the county, they would call it like the county or municipal family doctrine, for lack of a better word. So if you represent one county entity, you couldn't represent a private entity in front of that same county. But if you're on both sides or on the same side, so you represent the county in, let's say you represent DPW on one thing and then you represent them somewhere else, you're not in conflict, you're just representing them in a different capacity. You just can't represent somebody adverse to the government entity.
Okay. And I'm assuming that within these firms, they also have their own policy to wall off.
So it's called a Chinese wall generally if there's an individual within the firm that would have an individual conflict with the retaining, appointing authority. But as I said, they do their own conflicts check. Generally, I find that we don't even get to a Chinese wall scenario if there's anybody in the firm, certainly at a partner level, that would have a conflict. The firm passes on the opportunity to represent the county. That's generally been my experience.
Okay. So if there was a senior partner in a firm that in their governmental capacity had the ability to make decisions about money that the county may or may not receive, would that person need to be walled off in their own firm from handling a case if the county awards that case to said firm?
I'm not sure I quite understand the scenario. You might want to if you could just go through it one more time.
So the partner in the firm the partner in the firm also has a governmental position, or in that individual's governmental position, they would be taking action on whether or not the county of Essex received money or not.
I would say that would arise to a conflict. If I'm hearing the scenario correctly.
Yeah, and Commissioner Gill, I think with all conflict inquiries, you really have to do it case by case. So it's
it's
you really
difficult
have to
to
look at
answer
what
it
the
in a
specifics
generality,
are.
but given the scenario you've painted, it sounds like it would be a conflict, but there may be individual circumstances that would apply.
Okay, but and understanding is difficult to. I'm seeing one here but I'm hesitant to put that on the record because I'm not trying to create one where an issue where none exists. So I'm just trying to evaluate more generally. But I'll finish this question up by saying that's ultimately the firm's responsibility to self-report to the county. Who is the liability in that situation?
It's again, both sides conducted a conflict check. If the conflict exists on the firm's side, then it would be their responsibility to identify it to the county.
Yeah. Okay, so you've conducted a conflict check on these firms and feel that we're fine.
through our purchasing process, we determined that there was no interest in any of these firms in the county that would arise to the level of a conflict, correct?
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
No, thank you, Commissioner Gill. I have a motion from Commissioner Vice President Pomaris and a second from Commissioner Sebo to take resolutions 4 through 18, with the exception of 14, which has been withdrawn as one. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Sebo,
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Pomaris,
Yes.
Commissioner Mercado,
Yes.
Commissioner Luciano,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes.
Commissioner Gill.
Gonna have to do them one at a time, Madam Clerk. Number 4, yes. Number 5, present not voting. Number 6, yes. Number 7, present not voting. Number 8, yes. Number 9, yes. Number 10, yes. Number 11, yes. Number 12, yes. Number 13, yes. Number 15, yes. How far did we go?
18.
Up to 18. Number 6. Number 16, present not voting. Number 17, yes. Number 19,
No, 18.
I'm sorry. Number 18, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner President Richardson.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move to resolutions 19 and 20, which are from the Department of Public Works, and read them into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, David Antonio from the Department of Public Works is here for items 19 and 20.
Good evening, David Antonio, Department of Public Works. Item number 19 is a contract award to Garden State Highway Products, the sole responsive and responsible bidder to provide traffic sign materials for DPW Sign Shop. This is a 2-year contract, amount not to exceed $300,000. It is open-ended, as needed basis only, and this vendor, Garden State Highway, is a certified WBE. Item number 20 is a contract award to Schnell Contracting Systems to provide the rehabilitation of parking deck number 2 at the South Mountain Recreation Complex. This is a amount of contract not to exceed $235,475. It will be a 60-day contract. It is funded from DPW's capital funding. And on the phone with us, we have a contact person, Mr. John Slasik, who's a managing member of Schnell Contracting Systems, if the board has any questions.
Yes, let's hear from
Mr. Slasik?
Yes. Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, would you tell us a little bit about the contract, your company, who you are, where you're located?
Yeah, we're located in Freehold, New Jersey. We actually last year we completed a contract with you for one of the other parking structures on the site. We did this one recently, roughly around a month and a half ago, and this is the typical work that we perform. Pretty much concrete repair, caulking, waterproofing. We're a union contractor. Signed with both Local 4, Local 5, the mason contractors here in the state of New Jersey, as well as the laborers in the state of New Jersey.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Paulovecchio,
No questions for me.
Mr. McInerney.
These are both bid contracts. I don't have any questions.
Commissioners, any questions? And that was, Mr. Antonio, that was on number 20?
19 and number 20, correct.
So it's the same contract, okay. All right. No questions or comments from commissioners? Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Cooper and a second from Gill to take resolutions 19 and 20 as one. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Gill,
Yes.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Luciano,
Yes.
Commissioner Mercado,
Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Pomares,
Yes.
Commissioner Siebel,
Yes.
Commissioner President Richardson.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move to resolutions 21 and 22, which are from the Department of Parks, and read them into the record at a later date. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, Mr. Zates is here to address these 21 and 22.
Joshua Zates, Essex County Parks. Good evening, Board of Commissioners. Number 21 is a contract award to High Concrete to provide maintenance and repair services for the park and ride facilities. These are for all 3 park and ride facilities that are located over at the South Mountain Recreation Complex. It includes an annual inspection of each of the park and ride facilities, as well as repairs should there need to be any. And we do have a representative from the company on the line if you have any specific questions for that one. Would you like me to go on to number 22?
Yes.
Okay, number 22 is a contract award with Grassroots Turf Products to furnish and deliver various golf accessories from the 2021 catalog and the 2022 catalog. These are various accessories that the 3 golf courses would need, anything from flags for the holes to the actual cups that go in the holes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Paulovecchio.
No questions.
Mr. McInerney.
No questions.
Commissioners. So you have the vendor on the line for 21, High Concrete?
Through you, Mr. President, Josh Zates, Essex County Parks. I believe he's on the line.
Yes, I am here.
Okay. Could you just tell us who you are, give us your name and affiliation for the record?
Yes, my name is Jake Roop. I'm the Northeast Client Service Manager for High Concrete Group. We are based out of Lancaster, PA, and a little bit about who we are. We are a precast concrete company, so that means we design, we fabricate, and erect parking garages. We have over 50 years of experience. We've built over 800 parking garages. For reference, specifically, we built the Park and Ride Parking Garage 1, and we also built the Government Complex Parking Garage over at the Town Hall. Recently, we've been providing inspection, design, implementation of repairs, and preventive maintenance to the Park and Ride facility garages for the last 2 years. We held the previous contract for the Parks Department. And additionally, we've done repairs over at the Government Complex Parking Garage for the last 2 years, including structural connection repairs, waterproofing, and some concrete work. We have we've been involved in these structures obviously since the beginning, and feel like we have a kind of an intimate knowledge of these structures, and we look forward to continuing servicing these. So happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Palavecchio.
No questions.
Mr. McInerney.
No questions.
Commissioners. So you said you've been servicing these decks for the last couple of years. Do you have any Essex County people who you employ?
We do not, no.
So when you do these structures and you bring them up and you put them up, so you bring all of your employees from out of state?
The field erection is done by local unions.
Which local union? Is that 472?
I do not know the answer to that, since these were built 10, 15 years ago. I do not know the answer to that at the moment.
Okay, thank you. All right. I have a motion from Commissioner Sebo and a second from Commissioner Grant to take resolution 21 and 22 as one. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Sebo.
Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Pomares.
Yes.
Commissioner Mercado.
Yes.
Commissioner Luciano.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Graham.
Yes.
Commissioner Gill.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper.
Yes.
Commissioner President Richardson.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move to resolution 23, which is from the Division of Housing and Community Development. Please read into the record at a later date. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, Mr. Lombardi is here to address this item.
Good evening. Craig Lombardi, Division of Housing and Community Development. Tonight, we're requesting that we approve the extension of certain subrecipient agreements that had been previously approved for CDBG financing during as part of the program year 2019 annual plan. These projects are mainly capital projects that either let me just explain. The contracts technically expired on December 31st, 2020. They represent primarily capital projects that either we haven't been able to reimburse them for the work that they've done, or they're finishing up early in 2021. So we are asking that the contracts be extended so that we can reimburse the various towns and the projects that they're completing as part of the program year 2019 allocation. Any questions?
Thank you. Ms. Palavecchio.
No questions.
Mr. McInerney.
So these are existing contracts that have already been approved. And at this point, you just need them extended in order to have the authorization to pay. Extend the contract term in order to have the authorization for any additional work to be done, as well as making any additional payments to the vendors. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
All right, thanks.
Commissioners, questions or comments? Hearing none, I have a motion from Commissioner Johnson and a second from Commissioner Luciano. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Cooper.
Yes.
Commissioner Gill.
Yes.
Commissioner Graham.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Luciano.
Yes.
Commissioner Mercado.
Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Pomares.
Yes.
Commissioner Sebo.
Yes.
Commissioner President Richardson.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move to Resolution 24, which is from the Division of Employment and Training. We'll read it into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Momford is here to actually address 24, 25, and 26 as you go through the agenda. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is Director Julius Montford, Essex County Division of Training and Employment, one-stop manager. Item number 24 is funding from the New Jersey Department of Human Services Division of Family Development for Workforce New Jersey. This funding is grant funding that is awarded to us to provide support services to individuals that are receiving TANF and to provide staffing costs for all those county employees that provide employment and training services for TANF recipients. Item number 25 and 26. This is what used to be known to many of us as the GED test. Data Recognition Corporation is the sole provider. It is now called TASK, Test Assessing Secondary Completion. We have a two-year agreement with DRC to provide GED at the Essex County One Stop. We are the main GED testing center for the County of Essex. The testing period will go from backdated from June 1st, 2019 through May 31st, 2020, and June 1st, 2020 through May 31st, 2021. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mumford. I have a question for Mr. Paulovecchio. Can we take all three of these, or do we need to separate number 24? Do we need to do that in isolation?
No, you could take 24, 25, and 26. I just broke them up by division and department, but we could take it all together.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Paulovecchio, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. McInerney.
I do. With regard to, Mr. Mumford, with regard to the, what's called the previously called GED program, one of the things that came up in the past was the fee that's required actually was increased to a pretty significant amount. I don't know, I think it's over $150 or somewhere in that range. But is there anything set aside for those who can't afford to make that payment?
Through you, Mr. President, yes. If a client cannot afford to pay for it, then the Workforce New Jersey work-related expense account will pay for them to take the GED test.
Yeah, what is that fee now? It used to be like $30 before, but it's
because DRC took over from McGraw-Hill, it is now the last cost was $110.
Okay, all right. And the let me just make sure. Regard to
a portion of the revenue do come to the county for us to operate the testing center.
Okay. All right. Well, it's good to know that those who can't afford it have some opportunity to get that, to get it paid for. The other thing on 24, those are the training programs that are provided by sub-grantees. Those are the ones for employment training.
Through you, Mr. President. No, this is actually more of the supported services. We get two grants. We get one from the Department of Human Services and the one from the Department of Labor. Department of Labor provides for the sub-grantees. This provides for the supported services such as transportation. If a client needs to have their car repaired, if a client needs a bus car, the wave vehicles that we see running around the corner, running around the county, and other supportive services that are needed, such as the work-related expense to help them pay for the GED test and the staffing costs.
So there's two different grants. One that I'm explaining here, and the other one is the employment training that goes out to sub-grantees, which we've talked about in the past.
Correct.
I'll follow up on that. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mumford.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, any questions, comments? Hearing none, I have a motion from Commissioner Mercado and a second from Vice President Pomares to take 24, 25, and 26 as one. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Siebel,
Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Pomares,
Yes.
Commissioner Mercado,
Yes.
Commissioner Luciano,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes.
Commissioner Gill,
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner President Richardson.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you. Good night, Commissioners.
Good night. Please be reminded we will conduct a public comment session for non-agenda items at the end of the meeting. For any other call-ins, Clerk, can you give them the call-in information?
Yes, Mr. President. If you're calling in, the number is 855-756-7520. Again, 855-756-7520. And use the password 71138#. That's 71138#. You'll be acknowledged to speak in the order that your call was received. Emails received for public comment will be read after the calls are completed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk, let's move to resolution number 27, which is from the Division of Family Assistance and Benefits. We will read it into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, Director Burnett is here to address this item.
Good evening, Commissioners. Keisha P. Burnett, Acting Division Head for the Division of Family Assistance and Benefits. A DFAB was awarded a grant in the amount of $205,700,000 from the Department of Human Services, Division of Family Development, and the Division of Medical Assistance and Health Services in order to offset any COVID-related expenses.
Thank you. Mr. Paulovecchio.
No questions.
Mr. McInerney.
No questions.
Commissioners. All right. I have a motion from Commissioner Gill and a second from Commissioner Graham. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Cooper.
Yes.
Commissioner Gill,
Yes.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Luciano,
Yes.
Commissioner Mercado,
Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Pomares,
Yes.
Commissioner Siebel,
Yes.
Commissioner President Richardson.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you. Good evening.
Madam Clerk, let's move to resolution number 28, which is from the Division of Youth Services. Please read it into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, Director Hughes, Warden Barcliffe, and I believe the representative from Corizon are here to address this item.
Thank you.
Yes. Commissioners, to you, Mr. President, this is Director Hughes, Essex County Juvenile Detention Center. This is to hopefully continue the services, the fine services that Corizon has been providing to the residents of the Essex County Juvenile Detention Center. As Commissioner might know, they've been with us quite some time and have been doing an excellent job. In particular, I really want to highlight how they've come through for us in this past year with all the stipulations that were put on medical facilities such as hospitals and doctors' offices and all the kind of appointments we sometimes have to make and continue because of their relationship, because of what they have established throughout the time they've been with us, we were able to continue and not really fall back on anything. They really stepped up when it came to
Excuse me,
seeing that
pardon me.
our residents were
Excuse me for
saying that
one
our
moment for you, Mr. President. Someone please mute your phone. Your conversation is interrupting the meeting. You may continue.
and to you, Mr. President, they stepped right in and maintained constant testing of our residents. In the few cases that did come up, they provided the necessary care and treatment. We report right now that our entire facility, residents and staff, is negative, and we're able to function because of the service they have given us. So we're just asking for the Commission's sincere consideration in keeping Verizon and Essex County Detention Center together as we make our way through these trying times.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Mr. Parlavecchio.
No questions.
Mr. McInerney.
No questions.
Commissioners. So Mr. Hughes, you talked about the testing in 2020. How often do the residents and the faculty get tested?
Mr. President, our residents was getting tested. At one time, we was doing it every 2 weeks. We're now on every 3 weeks. And our staff is being tested every 2 weeks by the county.
That's via Horizon?
Horizon does, again, Mr. President, Horizon does the residents, and our county facility does the staff.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner McCarty, you got a question? Okay.
Negative.
All right. I have a motion from Commissioner Johnson and a second from Commissioner Luciano. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Siebel,
Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Pomares,
Yes.
Commissioner Mercado,
Yes.
Commissioner Luciano,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes.
Commissioner Gill,
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Commissioner President Richardson. So moved.
Okay. Madam Clerk, let's move to resolutions 29 through 34, which are from the Division of Community Action. Please read them into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. For items 29 and 30, Ms. Ramos will cover those. And for items 31 through 34, Mr. McCoy will cover those. So first up, 29 and 30 is Ms. Ramos.
Good evening. Maria Ramos, Division of Community Action, Essex County. This is the grant award that we receive every year from the Department of Human Services, Division of Family Development, for the social services for the homeless. We requested that this grant be approved since during this pandemic, our Essex County residents are in need of back rent, security deposit, and utility assistance. And number 30 is approval for the subcontract. We are using the same vendor for that we used in 2020, and we will be providing prevention services, emergency food assistance, hotel, motel, and transitional housing for Essex County residents. Any questions?
Mr. Parlavecchio?
Is that just 29 and 30? Do we want to go
Yes.
all the way through down to 34?
So someone else is doing those other two.
Oh,
so
somebody else is, okay. I
Yes.
don't have questions. No, I don't have questions.
Mr. McInerney?
I don't have any questions either, Mr. President.
Commissioners, any questions on 29 or 30? Ms. Ramos, I do have one. So are there any new vendors, or these are the exact same vendors from last year?
Yes, are the same exact vendors because they were selected through the RFP. So that RFP was for 2 years.
Okay. Thank you. Let's move to 31 and 32.
34.
This is Terrence McCoy from the Division of Community Action. Resolution number 31, Commissioners, is our annual renewal of the Community Service Block Grant for services and programs to our most impoverished in community constituents within Essex County. And our 32, 33, and 34 are the subcontracted agencies that provide said services to the community. 32 is the East Orange Community Development Corporation Agency. 33 is the Irvington Neighborhood Improvement Corporation. And 34 is the Montclair Neighborhood Development Corporation.
All right. Any questions, Mr. Parlavecchio?
No questions on them.
Mr. McInerney?
No questions, Mr. President.
Okay, I have commissioners. Any questions? I have a motion from Commissioner Mercado and a second from Vice President Pomares to take resolutions 29 through 34 as one. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Commissioner Gill?
Yes.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Luciano?
Yes.
Commissioner Mercado?
Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Pomares?
Yes.
Commissioner Siebel?
Yes.
Commissioner President Richardson?
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move to resolutions 35 and 36, which are from the Division of the Hospital Center. Please read them into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, Mr. Del Gordio, Director of the Hospital Center, will be addressing these two items.
Good evening, Mr. President. Frank Del Gordio, Director of the Essex County Hospital Center. Resolution 35 is a renewal of our annual contract with Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas Health for providing inpatient and outpatient services for the patients of the Essex County Hospital Center. We utilize all of the Barnabas Essex County hospitals for various services, and when one of our patients falls ill beyond our capacities here at the hospital center, we transfer them primarily to Clara Moss. All women's services is handled out of Beth Israel, and we utilize the whole Barnabas network in the county for all of their outpatient physician services. Resolution 36 is award of contract, our linen services contract to Clean Tech Services. They were the sole responsive and responsible bidder. It's a linen rental and cleaning operation for all of our patients here at the hospital center. They were the only bidder on this advertised bid, and they operate a facility out of Irvington, which provides employment to many of the community members there.
Thank you. Mr. Parlavecchio.
I don't have any questions.
Mr. McInerney.
Yes, Frank, how much of the resolution 35 that are the medical services at St. Barnabas, the 600, how much last year did we actually spend?
Well, last year, our numbers were a little over 100,000 because all of the COVID-related transfers weren't billed back to us, and we put a lot of our consults on hold. We tried to handle everything in-house. So 2020 was kind of an out of ordinary year. Typically, this contract, we're anywhere between 400,000 and the contract limit on this. But last year is really difficult to give a full number. We are still paying bills, as usually the medical billing comes in months after the service is provided. But the majority of the bills are all for outpatient services and specialty services.
Well, there was also a lot of normal non-emergency procedures that were put off as well. When I say put off, I mean deferred by the hospitals, given the caseload from COVID-19. Was that also the case at the hospital center?
Yeah, through you, Mr. President, that's absolutely correct. I mean, even our consult visits where, we have numerous specialists, and this contract also covers their physicians coming here on site. We have the chair of cardiology for Barnabas, Dr. Hawthorne, comes to our hospital once a month and sees all of our cardiac patients. So all of that was put on hold. We resumed that in around July when the pandemic started to subside, the first wave. So yes, all of those services were put on hold, and we're playing catch up now, actually.
So 600 is, if you're normally at 400 or 500, 600 might be even a little light if you have some catching up to do. Is that
well, it's all consults. They're not the big ticket items. You can't predict what could happen. I mean, we could have a patient who needs, triple bypass surgery, and those are, $100,000 service for someone who has no Medicare or Medicaid coverage.
Right.
So the hospitals do bill back to Medicare or Medicaid when we provide that information. So the hospital is only seeing that bill, for co-pays and what have you on those when the patient have absolutely no insurance at all.
Okay. And Frank, I'm just curious about something, nothing with the contract, but I don't know if you said this before, have the patients in the hospital center received a vaccine as of yet?
We have 83 patients were vaccinated with first dose. Out of those, 78 are due their second dose starting February 2nd, February 1st through the 3rd. And then we have another 20 consents for our patients, which will put us right now with our in-house census will be over 70% of our patient population.
All right. Thank you, Frank.
Sure.
Commissioners, any questions? Hearing none, I have a motion from Commissioner Sebo and a second from Commissioner Cooper to take 35 and 36. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Siebold,
Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Pomares,
Yes.
Commissioner Mercado,
Yes.
Commissioner Luciano,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes.
Commissioner Gill,
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner President Richardson.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move to Resolution 37 and 38, which are from the Division of Community Health.
Mr. President, Director Eileen Fishman is here to address those two items.
And Mr. President, you would like me to read these in the record at another
At a
time?
later date, yes.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. President and the rest of the Board of Commissioners. This is Eileen Fishman, Director of Community Health Services. Number 37 is temporary 2021 temporary emergency appropriation for the Division of Community Health for our mental health and addiction services. And that is for alcohol and substance use disorders. It's a grant that we get yearly. This year we were raised a few $1,000s, not a lot, but we're getting $1,456,325. That money is used to pay providers through RFP contracts and so that they can serve the people without any insurance who have substance use disorder in varying degrees. Number 38 is just that, the acceptance and approval of Chapter 51 Alcohol and Drug Abuse Services contract for our 2020 grant providers and in the aggregate amount not to exceed $1 million. And for this, we have 12 to 14 different providers who provide services from in-house detox, short-term residential, halfway houses, outpatient, intensive outpatient, outpatient MAT, which is medication-assisted treatment, as well as prevention and education. And also with some of this grant, we do recovery support services. So that is, we give toiletries out, we help people get their identification, because most people who have substance use disorder have been homeless for a while and need IDs renewed because they've lost theirs. We sometimes give them articles of clothing, and we try to help them find housing. So
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Polavecchio.
I don't have any questions.
Mr. McInerney.
No questions.
Commissioners, questions or comments? Commissioner Sebo?
No.
Okay. So I have a motion from Commissioner Gill and a second from Commissioner Graham to take resolutions 37 and 38 as one. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Gill,
Yes.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Luciano,
Yes.
Commissioner Mercado,
Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Pomares,
Yes.
Commissioner Sebo,
Yes.
Commissioner President Richardson.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move to resolutions 39 through 41, which are from the Department of Corrections. Please read into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Director Ortiz and his team are here to address items 39 through 41.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Thank
Yes.
you. Item 39, Department of Corrections Professional Services Agreement to provide engineering services, environmental remedial investigation. That's for the amount of $79,800. That involves services provided to us by an individual that is a county employee. That's a specific job. Because of where we're located, various tests have to be conducted on the soil, air, water qualities at the correctional facility. Item 40 is Department of Correction Professional Services Agreement to provide medical consulting services. Mr. Ronald Chansky, as we all know, Mr. Chansky has been with us for many years, and he is our overseer with regard to medical, and he's constantly monitoring us so that we can be in compliance with all medical mental health services and prescription services that are required for those under our care and custody. That amount is $30,000. Number 41, Department of Correction Emergency 60-day contract extension for health services. There was an issue or an appeal that's in motion from another vendor. CFG right now is providing the medical services, so we have to extend it due to the results of this appeal that will be forthcoming. And for item 42, I'll have, if it's okay, through you, Mr. President, Mr. Anthony Perillo, the Academy Director, is on there, but I'm just representing 39, 40, and 41, and if you like, number 42.
Sure.
Good evening,
Go ahead.
Commissioner President, Commissioner Vice President, Commissioners. Good evening. My name is Anthony Perola. I'm the Director of the Essex County Police Academy. And I'm here to speak about the Law Enforcement Officers Training and Equipment Fund grant that we received. They call it a LEOTEF grant, which comes from the Division of Criminal Justice. And it's based on the amount of recruits that go through your particular academy on an annual basis. And what they do is they have a dollar figure based on that, and then a grant fund is put together, which goes to each one of the academies. And our academy was bestowed a grant, which covers equipment used for training of recruits in our academy.
We'll be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Mr. Parlavecchio, I have a question. I see 42 and 43 were grouped together, but we just did 42. Do we need to keep them separate?
No, we could, 43 is related to 42. So,
So let's hear
43
43
is
and then we'll just
yeah.
take them all as
Sure.
one. Okay.
If I may, Mr. President, 43 is just inserting, the grant, temporary, is inserting the grant money into the budget for 43, temporary appropriation.
Okay. Mr. Parlavecchio.
Yes, more of a comment on 41. If the board, this is the 60-day contract extension. If the board recalls, I think in December, there was a public comment offered by an attorney for another vendor who also bid for this this service at the jail. And following that, there was a contest, not a contest, a challenge to the bid award and subsequent litigation, which is currently in court. These kind of cases are on an expedited basis, so I think there will be a motion sometime in February when the decision is rendered. Shouldn't be too far after that. So this 60-day contract extension should carry us through that decision of the court. My one question is the amount, not to exceed amount on this contract extension, is that based on the existing, on the current, or the contract that just ended in 2020?
That is my understanding, that it's the old contract. The new one has not kicked in yet. So that a dollar amount is based on the old contract extension.
Yep, thank you.
That is correct. The parties, I'm sorry, Courtney Gassione, Essex County Council, the parties agreed to extend the rate from the old contract through the end of the extension period.
Thank you.
Mr. McInerney.
Yes, on the engineering contract with Remington on Resolution 39, is that mandated that we continue to monitor? I don't know if we still have monitoring wells. I know the property had some issues, but is that something that was mandated, or is that something we just do to make sure that it hasn't gotten worse, or it's being eliminated, the problems that we had?
I can answer that based on my knowledge of the situation. For the first 10 years after opening the jail, it was mandated. It has since lapsed, but we continue it as an abundance of caution to always continue that. That is the information that I have.
Okay, and have the results of those tests, or can you provide us with the results of some sort of memo just saying, that it's either good or bad?
There is a report that is generated, and it advises us of the conditions of whatever it is, air, water, soil, and whatever have you. So we continue that.
And then the other thing is, and I don't know if Courtney may, I'm sorry, Ms. Gassione can add to this, is that overall case, and I forget the name of it, that very broad, and I know it's been going on for a long time. I think the county, is also included in that. Mike, do you recall what that case is that involves all the municipalities?
So this Courtney Gassion, Essex County Council. Are you referring to the Celanese matter?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Courtney. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Is that, where is that with regard to?
It is still ongoing, Mr. McInerney. I know there had been settlement discussions most recently. The ECIA through their council actually takes the lead on that matter for the county. But the last update I received is that settlement discussions were still ongoing, and we're hopeful that the county will be able to resolve it through settlement.
Okay, because I know at one point it looked like we were going to get out of it, and then we were.
Yeah, I think that's still the hope, but I think there was a few turns and twists and turns in the settlement discussions, but we're still hopeful that that's going to be the case, that we'll be able to get out of the case.
Okay, that's always been something on the back of my mind.
Yeah, it's been going on for a long time for sure.
Yeah, it has. Not related to this contract, but just it just kind of came up once we started talking about the environmental issues. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions on 39, 40, 41, 42, or 43? Okay, no questions. So I have a motion from Commissioner Mercado and a second from Commissioner Vice President Pomares to take resolutions 39, 40, 41, 42, and 43 as one. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Siebel,
Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Pomares,
Yes.
Commissioner Mercado,
Yes, through you, Mr. President. I'm yes, except 42 and 43 is present not voting.
okay. Commissioner Luciano,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes.
Commissioner Gill,
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner President Richardson.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, let's move to resolutions 44 through 47, which are from the Office of the Prosecutor. Please read them into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be handling these. Item 44 is a resolution approving participation by the prosecutor's office into the Insurance Fund Fraud Reimbursement Program in the amount of $250,000. This augments the office's efforts with respect to investigations and prosecutions relating to insurance fraud, and particularly medical insurance fraud and arson. It covers salary and fringe benefits. Item 45 is simply the temporary emergency appropriation that corresponds to that for the $250,000. Item 46 is temporary emergency appropriation to participate and receive monies for Operation Helping Hand, which is a wonderful program that instead of dealing with people who are opioid dependent, and in cases where instead of going to criminal arrest and they are given treatment in lieu of that, in lieu of incarceration. And that's in the amount of $47,619. Finally, item 47 is a body armor replacement program for the prosecutor's office in the amount of $7,865.93. And this is an ongoing replacement effort. The body armor has a useful life of 5 years. And this is protection against projectiles as well as knives and other pointed objects. And that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Polavecchio,
I don't have any questions on these.
Mr. McInerney,
No questions, Mr. President.
Commissioners? No questions? Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Sebo and a second from Commissioner Cooper to take resolutions 44 through 47 as one. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Gill,
Yes.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Luciano,
Yes.
Commissioner Mercado,
Yes.
Commissioner Vice President Pomares,
Yes.
Commissioner Sebo,
Yes.
Commissioner President Richardson.
Yes.
So moved.
All right. Let's, Madam Clerk, let's move to resolutions 49 through 104, which are Commissioner Board Committees and memoriams and commendations. Please read them into the record at a later time. Mr. Polavecchio.
Yes, Mr. President, I could speak on 49, 50, and 51. 49 first is establishing standard procedures and requirements for public comment during remote public meetings. If you'll recall, I think it was either in November or December of last year, the board passed an identical resolution. At that time, the State Division of Local Government Services, realizing that remote meetings were becoming more of a permanent fixture than a temporary fixture, required that government entities adopt resolutions standardizing their procedures. This board had standard procedures in place for quite some time. They hadn't been codified, so we did that late last year, and this is just a renewal of those procedures for 2021. As you said earlier, Mr. President, the 3-minute time allotted for public comment is something this board has had for public comment session for many, many years, whether we were in live meetings or now meeting remotely. So that was nothing new. But that's item 49. Item 50 is an update for the compensation for the commissioner's legislative assistants. Currently, the legislative assistants or commissioner aides, each commissioner is eligible to retain up to 7 assistants, and the aggregate salaries for all of those, whether you have 1 or whether you have 7, is $35,000, is capped at $35,000. That's just being raised to an aggregate cap of $40,000. And this was last increased 3 years ago in 2018. And item 51 is just a correction of certain clerical errors in the 2021 bylaws that were adopted at the reorganization meeting. We just missed a couple of entries where it still said freeholder instead of commissioner. So we don't need to amend the bylaws and go through those things. This is just a correction of some clerical errors to update that title. And then from there on, I can briefly say 52 through 79, Mr. President, are the creation of the annual, the various commissioner committees. Every year, these have to be renewed. Sometimes we add new ones. I don't think there are any new ones for 2021. But that is items 52 through 79, the creation of those committees. And then items 80 through 104 are commendations and in memoriam and support resolutions. And that's the extent of them.
Thank you, Mr. Polavecchio.
You're welcome.
Mr. McInerney.
No questions, Mr. President.
Commissioners. All right. I have a motion from Commissioner Luciano and a second from Commissioner Johnson to take resolutions 49 through 104 as one. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Siebel,
Yes, except for 50. No for 50.
okay, Commissioner, Vice President Pomares,
Yes.
Commissioner Mercado,
Yes.
Commissioner Luciano,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes.
Commissioner Gill,
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner President Richardson.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have any other added starters?
Mr. President, we have none.
Mr. President, if I can interrupt before you carry on, do we
Yes,
want to give
Mr.
one
Parliament.
more? Thank you. Do we want to give one more shout out to see if Mr. Dawes is on the line for this public hearing?
Yes, please do.
Is Mr. Wayne Dawes on the line? Have you called in? Okay, doesn't sound like it. And I don't know if Ms. Gassion is still on, if she's received any communications. I think she was the point of contact.
I have not received any communication from Mr. Dawes since we began at 5 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Polavecchio.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move to report of board committees. Commissioners, do we have any reports of board committees?
Mr. President, before we move on, did I miss the opportunity to comment on resolution number 84?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to highlight resolution number 84 and commend Commissioner Rufus Johnson for serving in his capacity as a freeholder for as long as he can, as long as he has. Commissioner Johnson was recognized by Governor Murphy last year as the longest serving African American male commissioner in the state of New Jersey. And so resolution number 84 just highlights his service and his commitment and dedication. And Commissioner Johnson, I just wanted to echo that and congratulate you for serving the community in our great county of Essex for such a long time. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
No, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, no, absolutely. I happened to be there when the governor made that statement. It was excellent. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up. Okay, now where are we? Legislative reports. Any written communications? Unfinished business? Any new business? Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move to public comment session on non-agenda items. However, since we are meeting remotely, the public had the opportunity to submit questions and comments for consideration, and they also have the opportunity to call in. Madam Clerk.
Mr. President, I'd like to remind all our constituents who call in that we respond to every question or all questions in writing. At this time, our public information officer will announce the callers so they can state their comment or question, and be reminded you have 3 minutes to speak. Please do not have your laptop or any electronic devices on while calling in. At this time, we are only accepting calls pertaining to non-agenda items. So at this particular point in time, I'm going to ask our public information officer to begin the public comment section now.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Chala Malumba, Public Information Officer for the Board of Commissioners. We do not have any callers waiting to make any comments at this time. Thank you.
Mr. President, we do have several emails for public comment, and I will read them at this time. The first comment was submitted by Carl Schwartz of North New Jersey. My name is Carl Schwartz, and I live at 11-15 Clinton Street, apartment 9A in Newark. For years, our movement has been demanding the closure of the Essex County ICE Detention Center long before COVID-19. We knew that ICE detention was a public health disaster. Detailed reports from ICE own Inspector General showed rotten food, foul drinking water, dirty cells, terrible air circulation, and awful health care. Detainees who spoke against these deadly conditions face brutal retaliation from prison guards. The trauma of survivors of ICE detention will live with is impossible to quantify and too awful for those of us on the outside to even begin to contemplate. No human being should ever be subjugated to ICE detention. But listening to Joe D. and the Essex County freeholders describe their jail, you would think that people were staying at a decent hotel rather than what many of us believe should be called a concentration camp. We were told time again that conditions in Jody's jail was getting fixed and it would be good for families to have a jail in the neighborhood. In fact, you should be thanking the freeholders for keeping the Essex County ICE Detention Center open. We were assured over and over. Now that we're living through the worst pandemic in 100 years, the already existing public health crisis in the ICE detention has been amplified tenfold. Conditions are so horrific that a large number of people in the center have been denying themselves food. Can you even begin to imagine how awful life in a concentration camp is during a pandemic? Must you be forced to deny your body the nourishment you require to live? What makes this situation so tragic is that the freeholders did not find an exit strategy years ago when our movement first raised the alarm about these conditions. The current hunger strike could have been entirely avoided if freeholders had broken their contract with ICE when we demanded it. But because they are so addicted to the blood money the contract brought into the county, we're now faced with a situation so dire that people are refusing the food they need to live. Brendan Gill and the other freeholders will attempt to deny responsibility. They will come up with 100 excuses for why they can't take action. As soon as this meeting is over, we demand that Brendan Gill call Governor Murphy and Attorney General Greenwald and formulate a plan to release every ICE detainee in Essex County and close the ICE detention center for good. They must do so immediately or they will forever have blood on their hands. The next comment was submitted by Edmund Jones. No address given. Over the past many years, the Board of Freeholders and the county executive developed policies in sync with the Republican agenda. Journalists have noted that ICE has treated inmates with disrespect, breaking up families, ignoring health threats, transferring some immigrants to retaliate because they raised their voices, and deporting others illegally. All through this period, the board and the county executive have done nothing meaningful to uphold human values. Now a new administration will be providing direction to ICE, and the National Democratic Platform makes it clear that a different set of standards should apply. We will demand that the leaders of our immigration agency be Senate-confirmed professionals, and that immigration and custom enforcement and customs and border protection personnel abide by our values and professional evidence-based standards are held accountable for any inappropriate, unlawful, or inhumane treatment. However, ICE is a large and currently reactionary entity whose policies and attitudes will not change just because the incoming administration professes humanitarian values. Relief needs to come now. It is time to end the Essex County contract with ICE more immediately. Hunger strikes at Essex County Correction Facility must be released. These individuals are exposed to the coronavirus on a daily basis and are being held only for the crime of being an immigrant. If they committed a crime in the past, they've already done their time. Please act accordingly to the democratic values that your party affiliation implies you have. Similar comments regarding the mistreatment of ICE detainees standards and the leaders of our immigration agency must abide by and the upholding of democratic values were submitted by the following people and will be read into the record at a later time. Elizabeth Redwine and Stacy Murphy of Denville, New Jersey. The next comment was submitted by Jim Price of Montclair, New Jersey. Dear Commissioners, soon we won't be able to accuse you of collaborating with neo-fascists, Trump, Miller, et al. We will have a new government and hopefully the worst of the Obama-Trump abuses will be eliminated. Wildly optimistic? Perhaps, but even Senator Menendez has publicly called for the end to the blood money contracts. Gosh, where have we heard that term before? Hopefully the county will be forced to stop balancing its budget on the back of its most defenseless population. The Democrats used to be the party of immigrants. Now we lock them up for money. Good job, Democrats. Regard, Jim Price. The next comment was submitted by Enrique Garcia Carrera of South Orange. This email is directed at freeholder Tashami Cooper, who represents my hometown, South Orange. I request, 1, hunger strikes at Essex County Correctional Facility must be released. 2, abolish the contract with ICE. Currently, several dozen people detained at ECCF are on a hunger strike because of cases of COVID-19 continue to rise inside jails and detention centers. Incarceration becomes potentially deadly. Everyone in ICE detention is being held simply because they are an immigrant. Even if they're committed a crime in their past, they have done their time. If they were US citizens, they would be home with their families right now. All ICE detention and all incarceration is family separation. Several hunger strikers have been transferred out of ECCF by ICE as retaliation against them. In the past, freeholders have argued that the ICE contract keeps people close to home and their lawyers, but this proves again that ICE acts with impunity against these people. All 4 ICE facilities in New Jersey maintain their contracts with ICE for one reason, for money. Even Senator Bob Menendez calls the revenue from these contracts blood money. The counties, Bergen and Essex and Hudson, are all trading people's liberty for revenue. That revenue helps elected officials remain in power. According to a report from last month, Essex County cooperates with ICE more than the other 20 counties in New Jersey combined and more than the State Department of Corrections. Under the Immigrant Trust Directive, no law enforcement agency in New Jersey is supposed to cooperate with ICE unless required by law. In Essex, however, it allowed ICE to interview 360 detained people, tipped ICE off about a pending inmate's released 168 times, and held 168 past their eligible release date and time. The election of Joe Biden isn't going to change anything for the people who live in fear of detention and deportation. That the jail's contract with ICE in New Jersey are all controlled by Democrats. Governor Murphy can sign the executive orders that have been on his desk since the beginning of November that would end transfers from prisons and jails to ICE custody, in ICE contract renewals, and bar any new contracts. I look forward to your response. The next comment was submitted by Mary Rizzo of Newark, New Jersey. My name is Mary Rizzo. I live in Newark. I'm speaking against your ICE contract, your contract with ICE. Like many of you, before the meeting on January 6th, I was glued to the Twitter watching what was happening in DC. Never in my life did I think I would see a mob carrying a Confederate flag invade the Capitol building to protest a fair election. In my circles, many people were asking why the police treated these terrorists so calmly when they responded to peaceful BLM protesters of the summer with tear gas and riot gear. We know the answer why: white supremacy. These protesters are white and supportive of white supremacist policies. White supremacy is not just something an individual believes in, it is structured into institutions. Let's take one that's near and dear to this county budget, ICE. ICE is an institution steeped in white supremacy. ICE terrorizes undocumented people of color who live in our communities. It breaks up families over a civil offense. ICE puts people in indefinite detention even after they're served their time for criminal convictions. By and large, ICE does this to people of color. You are aiding and abetting ICE in these efforts through your continued contract with them and in other ways as well. As many people have already noted, Essex County cooperates with ICE more than any of the other 20 counties in New Jersey combined and more than the State Department of Corrections. I would like to know why Essex County is collaborating to this degree with ICE. In the past, when you've justified your contract, you use the excuse that it's better for detainees to be in your jail because they would be closer to their family and lawyers. This is simply not true. Just in the last week, ICE has retaliated against hunger strikers at your jail by transferring them to other states. Your jail is not keeping them safe. That is only a cover for your addiction to this money. You can stop collaborating with this white supremacist organization. You have that power. You can respond to the courage of the people who are on hunger strike right now in your jail. You can pressure ICE to release these people, not transfer them to another facility. Then you can take the next step, which is ending your contract with ICE and your tacit support of the white supremacy that is tearing our country apart. The final comment is submitted by Caitlin Dullahannon Bates, and no address was given. Hello, my name is Caitlin Bates. I'm calling to congratulate President Richardson on being elected to head the commissioners and to demand that he pick up where President Gill left off by calling for an end to the ICE contract and the release of people held in ICE detention, Essex County Correctional Facility, following a hunger strike. The community knows that President Richardson insisted conditions inside ECCF were fantastic after the infamous Department of Homeland Security inspection of July 2018 revealed its atrocious conditions, and under the COVID pandemic, things have taken a turn for the deadly. People in ICE detention put their bodies on the line by hunger striking to demand their release. One hunger striker said that before being detained at Essex, I've never experienced the suffering, the pain, the agony that it is to be locked up there. All the humiliations, all the torture that one goes through in that place is unbelievable, it's awful. The strikes only ended because of retaliation threats by jail staff and ICE, not because their demands were met. It's a new year and a time for change. So can I get a written response from President Richardson as to what he plans to do about the situation? Thank you. Mr. President, that includes the comments that we received for public comment.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Commissioners, any further comments or questions? Hearing none?
I have
Yes.
one real quick.
Vice
I think it's just very important to note that today commemorates the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, where over 6 million of our Jewish brothers and sisters lost their lives, and of course, millions of others throughout the years have been affected by adversely through Nazism and similar groups like that. It's very important, I think, for us to continue this dialogue and to not let it forget. As a professor, sometimes I'm amazed at some people how little they know about it, or even for some people who think this whole concentration camps that took place during the Holocaust even took place. It's just unfathomable to me. I think it's very important that we remind people that this is, of course, a day of commemoration. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President. Motion to adjourn.
So move.
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion is adjourned. Meeting is adjourned.